All right, Hoover.
Yo.
So last week I was up at GDC.
Yes.
Went up there on my own.
I've never been. Is it fun?
Yeah, I'll say, and I was telling Greg this. It's kind of funny that like I oddly didn't really get GDC until I was out of a job 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I was just like, all right, Game Trailers is done. Easy Allies, I don't know if that's gonna be a job or an after work like hobby thing.
Yeah.
Like I need it. Like I bet I can go to GDC, you know, and
Pass some cards around. And
yeah. And so I contacted the people I knew that like worked on the press there, and they're like, yeah, just come up. You know, we'll just put you down as an independent journalist, whatever. And it's just like this big family reunion vibe, right? You know, it's just like you just see people that like you haven't seen for a long time, or that you've really forgotten about, or whatever. You know, it's like I actually one of the things I did is I went to the Gang Awards, which is like the Game Audio Network Guild.
Oh, cool.
And you know, so there's like all audio people in there and composers and such. And Richard Jakes got the Lifetime Achievement Award, and it was cool because it's like I interviewed him years back for Mass Effect.
Very cool.
But we did it over Skype because he's in Britain. So it's like I had never actually met him, and it was like so I got to like you know walk up because they have like a little mixer afterwards, and like able to walk up and say congratulations and all that, and so it was cool. And you know, there's I live tweeted some of that stuff, and so it's pretty fun to like. We get to the end and like audio of the year went to Cuphead, and they mentioned like Sweet Justice, and like, hey, I know these guys.
Yes.
They also gave like some kind of like best kickoff, or I forget what it was called, but they like gave like a new award to like the guy that actually like, did most of the music and stuff in that game. So yeah, very cool.
Sweet Justice hype.
Yeah. So with that vibe, you know, like I try to go to the awards, I try to go to some sessions, I try to just walk around and see who sees me, you know, and like
sounds like a E3 but lower stress.
Yeah,
which sounds really fun.
Yeah, and a lot of it actually
E3 is stressful.
One of the funny things too was at Game Trailers. Like I went to GDC several years to cover it for Game Trailers, but so many of those years I was never even on the GDC show floor or saw any of GDC itself because there's so many publishers and developers that have
like
hotel rooms and stuff like that, you know, so like you just go to a hotel room. I actually had slightly bit of nostalgia for one because I went into this hotel room and like I think this is the exact same room or the exact same layout as the room that I saw like Need for Speed Shift when it was first revealed to anybody, and it was like, okay,
same room.
But yeah, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go through some a mix of impressions and then kind of try to recap some of the panels that I saw, and I'm gonna do this in three parts. So I'll do one part today, and then one like hopefully the next part the next day, and then the day after.
Cool.
And then so I'll try to have like a highlight bigger game that I'm more excited about, and then some smaller things in a session.
Cool.
So I started it off. I actually pretty much like got out of the cab, got my badge, and then like went immediately to see Little Dragon's Cafe.
Love the name.
So this is by some of the original creators of the Harvest Moon series.
Ooh.
And Axis is publishing and distributing, and it's coming out this summer for Switch and PS4. And
that's a collaboration you don't really see that often. Just Switch and PS4, not PC.
Right.
No, that's.
But I mean, if you think about like Japanese developers, I mean, like that's what Japan is right now.
True.
So,
True.
So it's interesting because it has sort of that same kind of, you know, just relaxing in the every day-to-day moments that you would get out of a Harvest Moon.
Yeah.
A little bit different. And so what happens is you play as these two twin siblings, and you can choose to play as either one, and the other one will just be your helper. So if you want to be the boy, you can be the boy. If you want to be the girl, you can be the girl. Just pick whatever you want. And then the beginning of their story, their mother falls mysteriously ill.
Ugh.
And so they have to take on the responsibility of running the cafe.
Yeah.
And so
I was gonna say this game sounds jolly, and now it sounds real heavy.
it's still pretty jolly. Don't worry too much. And so customers come in, and you'll go to their table, take their order, put their order into the register, and then go back and cook. And the cooking, so you have your ingredients, plus you have this little cooking mini game. Really brief, like 15 seconds, couple directions and a button maybe. And then depending on how well you do in the cooking mini game, that's how good the food is for the customer.
That's fun.
And then later on, like, you pick up the customer's dishes and you put them in the sink. And so you kind of have that routine going on, as well as going out and getting ingredients and finding new recipes and like new like scraps of paper that have like partial recipes on them to assemble things.
It's like Harvest Moon with a little dash of Overcooked.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever get as stressed as Overcooked.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening is customers will come in. You'll get a sense of like things that they might like, is like sort of like quest lines. You like start to learn more about them, find out. Okay, like maybe if I like find the right recipe for them, like it will make their life better in some way, which also means finding the right ingredients. And then there are also some characters who end up becoming staff for you. So you end up like hiring cooks and other people to kind of manage the ongoing operations, and so you can go out more into the open world to explore.
Cool.
Now, with the little dragon part comes in.
Yeah.
So, when your mother turns ill, this weird old, like, wizard, like, poofs into the room. He's like, hey, I know what's up. I know, like, how we can help your mother. But what you have to do is you have to raise this dragon egg. And the dragon will be able to help make your mother better.
What?
So the whole time you're running this cafe, you're also raising a dragon.
So cool. So it's like Overcooked and Tamagotchi now.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And the dragon does go through like different stages of development, and as it grows up, it can do more things for you.
So great.
Like, you can use the dragon to like mow through like hard vegetation and like get ingredients that way. You can direct the dragon to like hunt animals, and it will, bring back meat for you. And when it gets big enough, then you can actually ride the dragon and fly to new areas of the island to look for new ingredients and
it's
recipes.
just a friendly dragon. It's not like menacing. It's not going to go like attack townspeople.
No.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so it's really cool, like how all these different things work together. And while you're away, like sometimes it does have like a real time kind of day night cycle going on. But you'll see like updates if your like food supply is getting low or that kind of thing, or if your workers are like stressed out or slacking off. And so we didn't get too deep into a lot of those systems. They kind of let us just kind of jump into the beginning of the game. What's also really cool is the art style. Out in the open world, it's a little bit more normal, for lack of a better term. But the cafe itself looks really cool. Like they described it as like a storybook presentation, to where it's like all these kind of hand-drawn, kind of imperfect lines and squiggles and things like that, and kind of like this sketchy texture on all the characters. So it's just a really, really neat looking game. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Always craving a farming game. I got a little bit into Stardew Valley, but I really like the idea of the cooking and the raising of the dragon. That sounds right up my alley.
Oh yeah, I wrote down a menu of like things that it keeps track of: manure, ingredients, recipe fragments, restored recipes, the dragon's status, staff morale, your ingredient stack, and your cafe's reputation.
Nice. Build that rep meter.
And the other thing is that I won't spoil, but there is some interesting stuff going on there with the lore that you find out really quick that I'm like, what? So
Something to do with the dragons, clearly.
Yeah. So let's see.
Fun.
The next thing I want to talk about, I want to directly after that. I went to a session on Nier Automata.
Ooh.
Which had Yoko Taro and the gameplay designer Takahisa Taura. And it was I had to go to it. What's funny is I ended up going to a bunch of panels for games I haven't finished.
Yeah.
But I had to go to it because like they had this bizarre description like on the schedule on the panel listing,
Yeah.
and it's like, you know, talking about like, you know, learn how like we made one of the perverted games ever, and or maybe we'll just talk about the American food that we had on the way there. You know, it's just like really out
Bizarre,
there.
yeah, of course.
But yeah, I mean, it was pretty insightful. The gameplay designer had also had a background. He worked on Revengeance and Wonderful 101 and Mad World, so kind of saw where he's coming from.
Totally.
And then you know, one of the like key things for him, and I would say probably for all of Platinum, is like the act of pushing a button should be fun.
Yeah.
Like it's like, and he said like you have to determine what you feel is good gameplay versus bad gameplay, and like, you know, set up those goals, because like he said, like Bayonetta gameplay wouldn't work for Dark Souls.
Correct.
Like you need to like figure out like what kind of game you're making and like design for that.
All those Witcher combat criticisms.
Right. And he talked about not having, or at least at first in the design process, not having any restrictions on canceling moves to be able to evade or jump. Just like, again, like everything, like when you push those buttons, there needs to be a response, unless there's a very direct thing that like you're getting hit. So of course, like you're gonna, you know, have a knockback or something like that. He talked about the time rate for response time for attacks, 0.16 seconds is the response rate. So from the time that you push the button to the time the attack hits.
That's cool. Well, does it vary depending on weapons and stuff? Like, did they dive into like fine tuning the small agile weapons versus like the large?
They didn't. Well, I think they did talk a little bit about that. One thing that
stuff always fascinates me.
But one thing he was talking about was, he said he did talk about adjusting the playback rate of the animation to make it feel better for what type of attack you're using. Mm-hmm. The other thing, he showed this screen that he has 64 different flags, like gameplay flags that could be like checkboxes that could be applied to an animation.
Yeah.
So stuff like armor, invincibility, whether like you're tracking an enemy, where the camera tracks the enemy when, and then like how the character turns their body and stuff. But it was all in Japanese, so it was like, even though I took a picture, like I didn't know what you know most of it said. But he said that like some of the things, like he just put like weird names onto, and so now he doesn't even know what like some of those flags exactly mean. Oh my god!
Like wrote a note down and then like did something else, and went,
you know, it's probably just something like dynamite, you know, and it's like, okay, that's that. And then Yoko Taro, which one of the funny little bits of trivia, I don't know if you realize, but Yoko Taro pretty much goes everywhere with the big mask on.
Yeah.
So when people were coming in, and this session was packed.
I bet.
So probably one of the most packed sessions I saw. When people were coming in, like he had the mask off, and they're like all like repeating like from the stage, nobody take pictures. It's like,
oh, of course.
And like other journalists were even tweeting out, it's like, nobody's supposed to be taking pictures if you see somebody, call them out on it. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because like when he did his talk, like he put the mask on, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So his basic section of the talk was questioning like, what is freedom? What does freedom mean? And he was talking partly about. He actually brought up a NeoGAF post where like, is anyone else experiencing open world fatigue? Mm-hmm. And he was talking about when things become ordinary, they become like a chore. Mm-hmm. So it's like, even though you have this high degree of freedom to go off and do whatever you want, people feel like they have to do everything.
Yep.
So he brought up some examples. So he brought up like Super Mario Brothers. Like, it's not this giant open world, but right in the beginning, you get to the warp zone, and you can just skip like multiple levels and just jump straight to World 4. You know, and just, you know, any like now we know with speedruns, like people can just hop right through the game. Yeah. And he talked about in GTA 4, like unlike most like Japanese RPGs where you walk around and you talk to everybody, most of the NPCs in a GTA game aren't going to talk to you.
Yeah.
And he's talking about like how that kind of reflects more like real life. Like you'd be a weirdo if you just tried to walk to everyone onto the street. So what he basically came down to was what freedom really means is that you have to first establish a frame. Like you kind of give people a set of expectations, and then you give people these moments where it's like, oh, I didn't think I could do that.
Nier Automata or Automata. Yep.
Yeah, whichever one. So and then he talked about in the first Nier about how he gave a false impression that the game ends, but then there's the whole other thing that you go back for. And then let's see what else. Oh, I think that's pretty much it. The basic gist of it. Yeah. There's a lot more into it. One thing that that's really cool sometimes about GDC. It doesn't happen for every session, but once in a while, like people will put out like videos of the talks.
Cool.
So you like get a little bit more deep dive into it.
But
yeah,
so
but he was showing like this circle. And again with Nier, like it's. He says it's not a AAA game. Like, he didn't have a AAA budget to make this game. And so he's talking about, like, it's like, okay, he's like, rather than trying to figure out, like, how to make the circle bigger, like, he made the circle, and then he, like, figured out how to make the circle smaller and then expand out to the bigger circle, in terms of, like, vague design terms. But, yeah, so it's really interesting to sit down and listen to those guys talk. Let's get back into some games. Oh, sorry.
No, it sounds. I just love hearing masters talk about their craft,
Yeah.
And they are for sure.
So we'll get into one thing that's really great about GDC is so many of the games are just from smaller devs, like a couple of guys, putting a game together, and
blows my mind that like couple. It's like even at E3 or PSX or whatever, you go back alleys and you see a game and it's like, yeah, just us. We're working on it. That's it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So Double Fine has this thing called Day of the Devs, and they had a Day of the Devs booth there. And so I checked out 3 games in that booth. The first one is What the Golf.
What the Golf?
Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay.
No.
The baseline is the same mechanics. Like it's a golf game.
Cool.
You start off
like realistic or more like Hot Shots?
No. It's not either. Like abstract, like picture like arcadey, top down, simple graphics.
Okay.
But you start off and it's like, okay, you hold the button and you push in a direction and the meter goes up and down and you let go and then the golf ball fires off and then it like hits whatever face it hits, right?
Okay.
The next course that you do that and then your character's body goes flying. Your character is now the golf ball.
Oh my gosh.
And this is how this game works. It just continually throws on more weird, crazy stuff. So, like, there's one point where, like, you're shooting the ball and there's a bunch of explosive barrels. And so you've got to avoid the explosive barrels. But there's a bunch of rocks in the way that can, like, knock your ball off course and things like that. And then there's another one where that, like, there's a line of explosive barrels you can't get past, but there's also a car parked there. So you hit the ball into the parked car, and then the car blows up the barrels, and then you get the ball into the hole.
Nice.
Wait, I should also say that you don't really get the ball into the hole. Like, you basically hit the flag, and that's all you really need.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
And it's just levels? It's
just like one level after another. There was some weird, like, because like most of it is like top down kind of a map, but there were some weird ones that were like, it was like this like 2D plane or like angles that you're going across.
Yeah.
There was one.
You had to like play the momentum with the ball.
Yeah, there was one that was like Mario gravity physics. So like you're shooting it off of one planet and like arcing it around the moon across to another thing.
Oh, that's fun.
There were soccer balls, and soccer balls, they kind of switch up the rules a little bit. Because with the golf ball, it's like you hit it and then it goes and then you can hit it again. With the soccer balls, you can like continually hit it like over and over and over again. So like you can fire the shot off, and then immediately you can push the button again and then redirect it somewhere else and like get around soccer players that are chasing after the ball and that kind of thing. And then again they like throw you off. Like you go to hit that soccer ball, and then the soccer goal starts flying off towards the other goal.
Is this just single player or?
As far as I can tell, it's kind of like a puzzle game, realistically.
Yeah.
You know,
Sounds like it.
there's one part where like you go and it's called hole in one, and so you start hitting the meter, and then all of a sudden like the hole pops out of the ground, and you're trying to get it into this giant one.
That sounds really fun.
And then there's some with portals. There's some
portals and lasers. They freak me out.
There's some with like this. You basically launch like a grappling hook thing, and then it does like these swing physics, and so you're like trying to grapple across gaps and stuff like that. And then they kind of they ended their demo with super putt.
Super putt.
So super hot rules with this, and a bunch of guys shooting at you. So like you have to like, so like you like as the ball's moving, of course that's when time's slowing. When the ball's stopped, everything's paused. But then like so you've got to like work your way to like avoid the bullets, and then like knock out the guys, and then pick up their guns, because you can like actually pick up a shotgun that like hits a spread. It gets multiple guys because you have to hit.
What the goal?
Exactly.
What? Insane sounding game.
And it all goes really rapid fire. So I think the real challenge
like a
is
WarioWare vibe almost.
Almost, yeah.
The sound
very much like that actually. Yeah.
Sounds really cool.
So I think the challenge for them is just going to be like, how do they make up enough crazy ideas for this game to last more than 2 hours?
Exactly, yeah.
Because I felt like I went through so many different courses in just like 10, 15 minutes.
Probably a cheaper game, I would imagine, too.
Oh, yeah.
10 to 20 bucks.
For sure.
Cool. On my radar. What the golf?
The next game I picked up.
Oh, was there any type of like meta progression, like characters or?
Oh, on that definitely not
or...
characters. I don't think it would be like that. I think it would be just like what you learn little rules, like I said with the soccer balls or the ropes.
Stages.
And those will get more advanced over time, but I don't think there's gonna be anything to like power up your.
Cool.
I mean, you don't even have a thing that you play as consistently from one level to another, so I don't.
Sounds great.
The next game I picked up is called Noita, and I don't know much about it. It's one, again, this is one of those games where like it's sitting there, no one's playing it, I'm gonna play it.
Yeah.
So I didn't have somebody to tell me what it's about or anything. I just kind of had to like fumble through it a couple of times and sort of see what this game is about. Mm-hmm. So it's a side-scrolling, a very pixel art, kind of looking like. I'd say one of the closest things I might compare it to is like old school Lemmings graphics on PC.
Okay.
It's like, around that 16-bit era, but, a little bit more detailed than you would get out of a Super Nintendo or something. Mm-hmm. And it's side-scroller. It looks like the level sort of laid out Metroid style, where like you're going through a bunch of caves and tunnels and such, and trying to work your way through. But it also feels like there is a very roguelike element to it, where it's like even though the map is sort of set from what I can tell,
love roguelikes, bud.
The items that you pick up and the enemies that you encounter are different. And one of the reasons I bring up Lemmings is because, as far as I can tell, this map is almost entirely fully destructible.
Whoa.
So
Red faction, here we go.
So you're playing as a wizard, and the first two like wands that you have at your disposal is just like a normal wand to like shoot and attack, like a little laser beam kind of thing, and then another wand that basically spawns bombs. And when those bombs go off, just huge chunk of the map, like worms. There's this big hole in the map.
Yeah.
And then things can light on fire, and the fire will keep burning away parts of the map. And then there are all of these other elements that kind of interact. So there is a wand that I got that like creates rain clouds. And then the rain would start coming down. The rain could put out fire, or the rain could kill fire enemies. But it also has like kind of physics, so that like it will fill up puddles and then start running down further into the tunnels.
Wow.
And then there was also, I saw like an acid kind of thing as well. And then there was something else that I wasn't sure exactly what it was. Like maybe it's oil or something. But yeah, so and they're like different enemies. The enemies seem pretty lethal. You get killed fairly quickly. You know, just trying to figure
Getting like
your
a
way
SteamWorld Dig vibe a little bit.
Maybe, yeah. Again, it's like without the like context of the elevator pitch, it's kind of hard to like suss it out. But it is interesting just like getting in there and like trying out different wands and
is that your only weapon, the wands? And they have all of different powers?
Yeah, it seems that way. But like they were very different powers. One was like shot arrows out as well, which seemed to be stronger than like your normal wands.
Got it.
But yeah, so that was interesting. I'm curious to see more about that, find out what it's about.
Yeah. The water like actually kind of rising and then kind of dipping out into other areas.
And again, like if you bomb like a pool or something like that, water's going to rush down and like possibly, because water can kill, there's like zombies and stuff crawling around, and the water can like kill some of them, but like everything has got a lot of, you know, elemental factors to it.
Cool. And you said roguelike? Were you dying a lot? And like,
yeah, I died several times before I really figured out what the heck was going on.
So you die a bunch and then you keep your items that you've earned?
No.
Okay.
Did not.
Wow. So you start all over when you die.
Yeah. Jeez. At least, I mean, for the demo. So.
Cool.
And then the last one I'll talk about today for this video is Pool Panic. Have you heard about this?
Nope.
I think it was shown off at the Nindies thing, because I remember like seeing Greg Miller and some other people tweeting about it before I went up there. And it looks like it's an Adult Swim kind of thing.
Is this with the killer has to like come?
No. So
that was like
there's some ways that this is similar to What the Golf.
Okay.
But you're a cue ball with arms and legs and like a face, and it looks like an old school like I mean, it kind of has some similarities to Cuphead or like Ren and Stimpy, maybe like just like hand drawn, like animated style, but kind of ugly.
Yeah. Like
very intentionally ugly.
Okay.
You know,
Ren
like these cue balls have got to be going around smoking cigars, kind of thing. And also kind of like what do they call those games? Like nightmare physics games or something? Because like obviously like pool is going to have some physics to it, but it was like you had to like work the controller like backwards to what you thought you wanted to do. Like if you wanted to aim this way, then you've got to aim that way, kind of thing. Like move the controller to the opposite. And so you've got these, you know, pool balls walking around, and you've got to like hit them in. You know, you're just playing pool, but things are walking around, and then things change as you go into different levels. They'll run away from you. There's this one scenario where it wasn't really a pool table, but like you were in a camp full of tents, and so the tents would block your path, but you could also like go through the middle of the tents. And then some of the not cue balls, but like some of the balls were actually like raccoons hiding in the trees, and so you had to like hit the trees and knock them out of the trees first.
Fun.
And it does have like the kind of typical rules where like 8 ball is always last. Like you got to hit everything else, but then you hit the 8 ball in.
Cool.
And then there is oh no, I didn't knock the tree. I didn't knock the trees to get the raccoons down. That's wrong. The raccoons were in the trees. What I did was I hit the meat off of the barbecue, and then the raccoon balls came down to get the meat, and then I knocked them into their holes, whatever hole I could get them into. And it does track how many shots you're taking, so you do want to try to like do that. You do want to keep your time down.
I love games like that, where it's like you can do it with as many moves as you need, but there's a minimum. I love that.
Yeah.
Get that perfect run.
And then the last one that I did, the balls were inside of like these Russian nesting dolls. So you had to hit the doll, bust it apart, hit the doll again, bust it apart, and then get the ball into the hole. But if you weren't quick enough, the halves of the Russian nesting doll would like kind of come back together and like seal it back up.
Cool.
Yeah. So fun game. Yeah. So that's it for day one of my GDC impression. What do you think so far?
Some weird sounding games, Bloodworth. I like it.
Yeah.
People just creating really bizarre out there ideas that seem to be working.
Yeah.
And I always appreciate new outlandish creative
I've still got some
games,
weird ones coming up.
You
for
know,
tomorrow,
I
for
love
sure.
that. That's why I love video games so much, Blood, because you can have things across the entire spectrum, just from super, super serious to super, super wacky.
Yeah. It's definitely fun just seeing what's out there.
Yeah.
So many games.
Yeah.